Hello, everyone, and welcome to Answer the Call. So, this is going to be a little bit of a different show today, maybe. But to start it out initially, it will definitely be look similar, but be a little bit different in the sense that we're going to have one guy call in that you're familiar with, but it's more to get a really solid groundwork of the topic today, which is, does Star Citizen need prisons in 3.9? And I'm coming. I came from the perspective of this topic in. Well, there's a lot of priorities in Star Citizen, so why prisons first, right? And for me, the answer to that question is yes. I feel we do, and the reason that I feel we do is that I feel that Star Citizen is trying to make the framework for what piracy gameplay would be. And it makes a lot more sense to create what's illegal and what the punishments are before you, I guess, allow open season on everybody. And obviously the game is pretty open minus the armistice zones right now. Like PvP is non-consensual and you can kill other players, but it sort of makes sense to me to have some of the framework of what piracy will be boxed into, I guess, and that from there they can start focusing on what the real priorities need to be, like looting players and a pirate actually getting reward from the risk. So they're creating the risk before the reward, and it sort of makes some sense to me. So without further ado, we're going to bring on a VIP member of Answer the Call, and that's ASN, who is a game developer in his own right. So I kind of want to understand from a game development perspective, why are they putting in prisons in 3.9, and why don't we necessarily have something like I don't know, an inventory system or something like that, right? Now, before you get down into the comments and start saying, oh, well, SaltEMike, the reasons we don't have an inventory system is because the iCache is planned for X, Y, and Z. I get that stuff. I mean more along the lines of why would prisons come first, right? Like, I understand that there's dependencies for a lot of the gameplay that we wish we have and that we don't have right now. There's a lot of dependencies to make that stuff happen within the game of Star Citizen, so I get that. No need for those comments below. Definitely comment below like what your thought processes are, but I don't need the explanation. I get it, kind of thing. What I don't get it is from more of a gameplay perspective or a game design perspective necessarily. So let's without further ado, let's bring in ASN and hear what he has to say. ASN, what's up, man?
Hey there.
How you doing?
Doing good. VIP, oh man, like you're really upping the ante here.
Well, VIP as in the sense that you're here very often, and you do provide a lot of insight for all of us, because that's the most difficult thing about the game. Is sometimes they explain game development pretty well, but you know it's been around for quite a few years now, and I still get tripped up and get caught up in the hype when the reality is that it's really difficult, and hitting their goals on the roadmap are unlikely in a lot of cases sometimes, just because of the sheer craziness that is this game's development and just game development in general.
I think there's one thing I can say, and it relates to this pretty well, because it kind of the piece missing here is that SIG design, after sitting down with production, should come on these communications channels like SC Live or Inside, what was it, Inside Stars, like whatever,
Yeah.
like the weekly show, and kind of say, hey, like, you know, for the next 6 months, this team, we're going to focus on expanding the law stuff, and these are our design goals we're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
and we have the resources for them. So we'll try and just see our journey and let's figure out if this is gonna go good or not, or like give us feedback and just like kind of do it like that instead of just popping up these changes in front of the community and being like people are like then, oh, why are they making this, like what is the reason of this, like
Do you know
the
what's
design
very interesting
intention.
about your statement? I hate interrupting. I'm getting a lot better with it, but I'd really love to stop you
No, go ahead. No, you didn't
and
interrupt. Go ahead.
make this point. You're a game developer. What you were explaining to me was what sounds like what they do internally, right? That they lay
Yeah.
down their plan. They say these are the design goals for this mechanic for 3.9. And this is what we're going to try to achieve. And this
Yeah.
is why Star Citizen isn't truly open development, is because if it was, they would do exactly what ASN just said, because that's what they do internally, right? They're open, they're extremely open, more open than most game developers, right? Of course, or all game developers probably. But the excuse me, but there's always that fear of what the community will think if they fail or whatever, right? But if they were really truly being open, they would do exactly what you said. And
I mean,
I don't know what the fear
and
is.
yeah, and there needs to be a consistency to it because Luke did explain this at CitizenCon,
Very
right?
well.
But you got to maintain that messaging while also explaining what other things the game is working on and why this is prioritized over them.
Yeah.
And maybe like the thing is because the community is already very divided on a lot of subjects, and maybe the reason they don't want to share the internal reasoning behind, oh, we think that prisons are more important right now than the other things, is because the community will discuss about it and it won't get them to any point where the community is united, where like because they don't want the community to determine, I think, what the development priorities are. They want to determine them internally. And maybe that is
Uh,
why they are skeptical about sharing the internal reasonings of why certain things are happening and others aren't, if you know what I mean.
I know what you mean, but I think that that's thinking a little too much into it, maybe.
Okay. I mean, because that's
I
what
don't
I
think
would
so.
think. Because if I had a community as large as Star Citizen, my only concern would be the community wouldn't think like our internal team would, because we just think differently because the priorities for us are different than,
Yeah.
because when you're making a game, the priorities are very different than to what your community wants
Yeah, I
sometimes.
mean, the community wants to play it. They don't want to develop it
Yeah,
necessarily.
exactly. So I mean,
I
but
get the point you're
coming
trying
back
to
to the
say, though,
prison
is
stuff.
they don't want us
Mm.
choosing the priorities.
Yes, and they don't want to divide the community further. Like that's another thing. But I think
Yeah.
they could do a more better job of explaining the intentions of it and why it matters over other things sometimes. Not all the time, maybe, but like, we think that this is more important because this. Kind of
Yeah.
give that good reasoning out there.
Now, from your perspective, why do you think they would choose prisons to be more important over anything else that comes to mind? Because nobody thought
Hmm.
prisons were never mentioned until they were. As far as like all the features that need to come on for Star Citizen to happen, I don't. I know prisons were mentioned way back. Actually, I take that back. They were mentioned a long time ago. But I guess for a while they were shelved, and we talked about all these
Yeah.
other things that need to get done. There was many other things on the roadmap before prisons, but prisons, yes, they've been mentioned for. I mean, going back to the 10 for the chairman days, I can remember him mentioning prisons and escaping and all that.
Oh, yeah, the Chris promising everything days. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is like delivering one of those promises, I guess. But the why would Star Citizen these days choose this over something else?
Okay, so you got to look at the current PU as it stands, and also like how they envisage how it will stand in like 5 years or whatever, whenever the meshing comes in and
Yeah.
whatnot. So right now, and this is pretty clear, I think, is that the game is actually played in a short time frame. The servers are up for a short time frame. and the gameplay there, like the peaceful gameplay, is doing missions without like anything except the bounty missions, and anything except like the more lawfully the debatable missions. But
Uh-huh.
like you have trading, mining, all that stuff, and that makes you money, and you can pretty peacefully play that stuff. But
Yeah.
once a player attacks you, the only thing that really happens to them is they can live, like they can freely live in a more narrow area in the game universe,
Okay.
and that is about it. Like they lose some missions, they're more narrowed down, but there is no clear deterrence to players except for paying fines and narrowing their game area or just limiting their ability and freedom. Which actually, as a design perspective, makes complete sense, but it would only make sense if there's also clear deterrence and punishment, right?
Yeah.
And a harsher punishment and deterring these unlawful players is putting them in prisons. Now, at that point, I think the debate is like for a designer would be, if you're going to put people in a prison, like we can't let people sit idly for like whatever time, especially if they've been punished as part of a gameplay. And that's why they design all these things around the prison and whatnot. But
To
I
make it
think
at
like,
least sort of fun while you're being punished.
yeah, exactly, to kind of create a system around it.
Yeah.
But I think the real importance here is that that unlawful players will. I mean, as soon as this comes out, because of the lack of content, everybody will try it out because
Of
they want to
course.
see what's gonna.
Of course.
So it's not gonna hit the design intentions on the get-go because of Star Citizen's lack of content. But
Yeah.
eventually, when the community feel balances out, when people go back to the normal loop, it will make unlawful players think, and it will be a consideration. And it will also create the situation of people not trying to get caught. Like people will actually try to escape law enforcement and not get caught, which is another part of being an outlaw that is not really in the game right now.
Yeah.
So it actually ticks off a lot of the law and order boxes, especially on the punishment side and the deterrent side. That's what I think is the goal right now, because right now the game is very tilted to that side, and it doesn't punish those players enough. And they're kind of like looking into that, and eventually, obviously, once they kind of add prisons for every system or every planet or whatever, and once the player numbers increase, you'll literally have a dynamic system of putting all the bad people in jail once they get caught.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And like so you think it does make sense to put the punishment before allowing them to truly make the crime? Like there's obviously crimes in the game now, but there's I'm sure you're aware that there's no real there's risk and reward gameplay, but there's no reward for a piracy gameplay loop right now. Or there's just and this is why players keep calling pirates and PvPers griefers. And
yeah, right now it's kind of like that.
yeah, it's really bad, especially PvPers. Like players that are just looking for PvP and that just want to fight anybody, or trying to make their bounty as high as they can just so they can get some legitimate PvP. This is the whole point of this podcast for me, is a lot of those players are just dying to have a reason to kill and fight other players, whether it's kill them and loot them, steal their ship, kill players that are unlawful, and be able to gain more than, I guess, just some credits for it, right? It's that gameplay loop.
Yeah.
I'm surprised wasn't more fleshed out before something like this was fleshed out. Like from a mission system perspective, like what do you think that's all about?
So I think like right now it makes even more sense because there is no reward and people are doing like unlawful things just to have some fun or excitement or just for
just
the
have
lulz.
anything, right? So they're being griefers, but they're not.
They're just triggering some sort of induced content in a way.
Yeah.
But like I think right now it makes even more sense because right now the other part of the game isn't in. So right now you're literally just punishing those fucking around, and which is actually not a bad thing. I think it makes sense right now because the ones who aren't are gonna have like at least a better life.
Yeah.
And the other thing is they're probably going to turn around and then start doing what you're saying, which is like increasing the risk versus reward, make like tying this more into the part of like how do outlaws make money, and how
Yeah.
do people who are not criminals make money? Because this is just one part of this puzzle of balancing out like peaceful and violent content inside the PU. Is like, the grinding content and the more unlawful content where you're trying to make other people's lives a bit more miserable, but you're making money and you're making your life through that. So like
Yeah.
balancing this out is very important. And this is why, like in Eve, for example, the security system in Eve is very well done.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like SC is kind of evolving to something similar, but with more detail, especially on the types of offenses that you can commit. And
Okay.
there, it really matters what part of space you're in. Like
Okay.
for a miner to be at like high security space, like, and in the PU, like we could, let's say Yella. I mean, Yella isn't because there's a pirate air thing nearby, but like, I don't know. Let's say
There's no
Aberdeen is
good
the safest.
example, but we can make one.
Yeah, let's say the live designers say, okay, we think that Hurston is the safest area
Yeah.
for some reason, and then Aberdeen is like a great place to mine, and automatically the people who don't want a lot of like risk will automatically go to Aberdeen and mine,
Yeah.
and it's also less likely for pirates to come because in the East scenario, you would immediately have security response from the local authorities,
Yeah.
Concord. So in Star Citizen, it needs to be the same. Is like the reaction time of incoming police forces on planet and off planet should be pretty quick whenever the area is high security, and very delayed and late, or maybe not even coming in at the lower security areas.
Yeah.
This automatically creates a tool for designers to say, hey, the lower the security, the better the materials. The lower the security, the better the rewards. So
Exactly.
you start creating a system that's like more like zoomed out approach and designing this, and then any player going in will automatically feel that, and like count that in pretty
Yeah.
much.
And the risk versus the reward gameplay goes both ways then. And I mean, we discussed this a little bit on the stream this morning. I don't know what direction Star Citizen's going with risk and reward gameplay. It's very difficult to tell. It could be some of the systems that are in place as far as insurance goes right now is more for the fact that the game's still in a really early alpha state and is very buggy, and lots of things crash and break and you die more often than you should because of issues. So maybe some of these things are in place there, but the idea of having risk versus reward on both ends of it is really cool. And I agree with you. Since there isn't, it makes total sense to put the framework that a pirate would have to work within in order to stay in piracy makes a lot of sense. And then you just make the systems to make piracy work, I guess.
And because like the problem with Eve system, and every system is a problem. The Eve system is pretty static, which means that high sec, low sec, mid sec, null sec, and wormhole secure sec is all presets. I don't know if they started making it more dynamic in the last years, but whenever I played, it was static.
And with Star Citizen, it'll be dynamic.
Yes, what Tony Z is trying to do is trying to make it more fluid while remaining within a constraint. So we can say that, for example, because the current narrative is, piracy is increased in the Stanton system because the UEE has weakened and this system was given out to corporations. So, corruption is more likely and stuff like that. So it all makes sense. But, you can have it more fluid in a more dynamic fashion, but it's just the game is not there right now. And for now, I think they should just think static as a building block of saying, hey, there's piracy. I mean, which is what they're doing, but just making it more for players, not just for NPCs. It's like there's more piracy around Grimhex, obviously, because there's a pirate outpost.
I mean, it's like Jumptown was. Remember when it was just Jumptown?
Yeah, stuff like that. We did, and like how players interact with it. Setting it there is one thing. Putting Jumptown there is one thing. Putting Grimhex there is one thing. It's another thing to incentivize players to interact with those places in a meaningful fashion where they feel the game is alive.
Yeah. And that was truly the last time that Star Citizen was alive from a PvP perspective, and they still just didn't have, like, if they brought Jumptown back and have the systems that they have in place now that were when you kill a player, it drops some of their cargo.
Yeah.
That's a lot stronger now than what it was then. But they
Has there
spread
been any
things out
word
so much.
on that stuff, on the technical challenge, like this the software development challenge of having people drop cargo and pick it up and having earning money from actually raiding traders? Has there been any word and update on that?
It just kind of it's always okay. When 3.0 first came out, I don't think it existed, but throughout the cycle of the 3 series, at some point ships dropped cargo, but it like overloaded the server, so they stopped doing it, and it just is like kind of making a comeback now. And you could sell them. It's considered stolen cargo if it's not from your ship, and you could sell it
Okay.
at the no questions asked terminals, very like lower
But
price
there needs to
than
be
what
easier
it's worth.
system to pick it up, right? You're going
Yeah.
one box at a time is doesn't make any
Yeah,
sense.
the only easier system is if it's in space. You can just open the doors and have it scoop in, and once it comes into the object container, they just drop into the
just
gravity.
sticks, yeah.
But yeah, for sure they need to think about stuff like that too. And I think that they are, because they said the next step for the multi-tool is a tractor beam. Is
Yeah,
what they
yeah,
want to
yeah,
do.
yeah. And
So yeah,
yeah, so like it all like the so this is like the prisons is, so think about it like because they say pillars, it's been so overused, but let's just say
yeah,
pillars. To have the PU a dynamic and consistent and living universe without actually the really dynamic part right now, just as it stands, is you do need um, normal paying missions that are relatively peaceful. You need the slightly more riskier stuff that will give you a bit more money, but you're more likely to die.
hmm
And you need the unlawful content that will make you a lot of money, and you're pretty much likely to have a conflict with players and NPCs. And
yeah,
then while this exists, you need a law system that oversees every action throughout the universe in detail, punishes and deters players through fines, and now also with prisons by delaying their game time and content and giving them another type of content, but limiting them.
yeah.
So
It can limit them,
it,
but
it
it can also enhance them, like based on some of the things that Luke said. Like you could be a warlord that works in the prisons, kind of thing.
yeah, so
Uh,
you can tie it to existing content. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. It's you can tie it to the one of the gangs. You can do a lot of stuff with it, and it's not a bad thing. And I think overall it fits with the Star Citizen design of having a realistic first-person universe, because people will actually be. I mean, you're being teleported to the prison, but that's not the point. You're actually going to be in a prison in the universe, and there will be people while you're playing that are in a prison. And I think this thing with Star Citizen is like it's eventually, once like they kind of get to that point, but it's eventually going to be a game. It's going to really feel like a simulation of, I'm here hanging out at Port Olisar buying a cap. There are 10 people in prison on the Klesher prison. There are 50 people having a fight over whatever outpost. There are 20, the game is going to evolve towards that direction. Everything they're setting up, even with the prison, is going to eventually lead to that, because that's the
yeah,
design,
yeah,
to have a realistic universe as much as they can.
yeah.
So I think it also fits the overall vision,
hmm
and it also starts really making deterrents and annoying like the outlaw players, and also punishing them for getting caught as well. So you also have another nuance there, not get caught,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
also improving that system for them later on.
yeah, and it's such a cool way of doing it, because other games try to limit unlawful players for in multiple ways. Like in a lot of the MMOs that I played, like unlawful players could be freely attacked by anyone in any area, where there's some like non PvP areas and there's some PvP areas, but unlawful players are just free to be killed at any time, but they can't initiate the
Yeah.
fight. And that's just kind of
Yeah, yeah.
weird and immersion breaking, where this is fully immersed, the most realistic style of kind of punishing an unlawful player that I've seen anyone attempt to do. So it'll be really interesting to see kind of what happens
I think the
with it.
closest is GTA RP. They have a prison, in that
True.
server. And because I watched a couple of those episodes, and I was like, man, it's a small server. How are they even actually using the prisons? And yes, they are. Obviously, they kind of RP it, but
Yeah.
whenever I saw them RP it, I'm like, you could tie this to a game system, with design and with programming, and you can actually make a gameplay loop out of it, which is what Luke is doing.
Yeah.
And I think one of their inspiration is looking at that community as well, because there's so many similarities of how they did it and they're playing it. And obviously also researching real life incarceration and prisons and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is again one part of it, right? So you do need to turn back and increase the risk versus reward gameplay, simplify looting, and also give more opportunities for peaceful players to actually be in safer areas where police, like security, whichever region, would protect them. And
Yeah.
that is one weakness that the game actually also has right now, in my opinion, is that the police doesn't appear nearby when there's a criminal act.
Yeah.
The police
Agreed.
only appears once you enter and leave QT. There should be a beacon system of literal advocacy popping up in a high sec area of saying like, hey, there's been combat here. We've just been called in. Like, that's what's missing. Because if a miner is actually mining in a safe area, and a random player pops in, or a random PvP, NPC pirate pops in, there should be. You could call the cops in real life, right? So there should be a system of you to call help from the AI, from the local authorities, and that's something that's missing. And I don't think it would be too hard to pull off now that they're working on the atmospheric flying for AI. You could also pull that off on planets.
Then it can happen anywhere.
So I think that's very important too. So they're already like there's 6-7 I think weaknesses in the system, and prisons is just knocking out one of them. But there are like a bunch to go.
Gotcha.
Pretty much.
Okay. So what are your thoughts? I'm kind of putting you on the spot here a little bit because we've been talking for about half an hour. What are your thoughts on kind of being a little bit of a guest today? And then we have a few people calling in and a tweet. And would you mind like sticking on the call and discussing this topic with some of the guys that are calling in?
All right, sure. I don't mind.
Do you have time?
I'll make time because I worked my ass off in the past 3 days and I haven't slept a lot. But today I want to chill a little bit. So this is actually this is how I chill talking about games. This is so stupid.
Okay, yeah, right. Talking about game development, you chill from game development, talking about game development, but. Yeah, right. So I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I didn't expect people to come in, and I think it might be interesting. All right, so with that then, we'll go to the first tweet, and it's or the only tweet right now, and it's from Desmond. And he says, the primary concern for prisons is mechanics for escape. If it requires 3 oxygens and to memorize a 4-minute walk, then after the first week, it will be almost useless. In real life, once someone escapes, they'll update security. CIG can't really do that. And then he says his next biggest concern is bounty hunters camping the escape route, free money for taking out an unarmed target with a crime stat 5, dodging their CS4 punishment. How could they both allow pirates to fly in to save criminals without allowing bounty hunters to simply wait to execute them? And then he said something in the way distant future with server meshing that criminals would all go to prison and they'd be in the same server together, and then they can like party up and make basically crime syndicates.
Could you also this is on your Twitter, right? Because I want to check it on my.
Do you want me to at you on it?
No, this is sent to you on your main page, right?
Yeah.
Or can you link it?
Yeah. Yeah, I can. Here we go.
All right, where did you send it? On the
I haven't yet. I'm trying now. I'm trying to send it to you on Discord. All
right.
There you are. Done.
Okay. Yeah. But this is Escape from the Prisons, right?
Yeah.
So I actually mentioned this at the Q&A with Luke at CitizenCon. And I said, hey, once people figure out, it's going to be pretty repetitive, what kind of dynamic elements are you adding up to it to make escapes more dynamic? And Luke kind of admitted that it's going to be pretty similar for a good time. and that the escape is not going to change much. But what they're trying to do is actually kind of change the stuff leading up to the escape eventually, kind of changing the ways to escape pretty much.
Okay.
And they're also trying to add elements after you escape that make it more difficult, like the turrets, like the very bad weather. So kind of like making sure that the escape is never easy. And then later on, eventually, whenever they get another pass at it, look at how to make it more challenging and more different. But escapes once again, it's a very valid concept. Once people figured out the formula, there will be one go-to meta, which is the thing I really don't like about games, is that people meta everything and like they find the ultimate thing, but
Yeah.
it's what happens. The bounty hunters thing is an interesting concern. This is literally Luke level questions. Like you gotta straight up talk to Luke about this stuff, because this is the stuff what designers actually are always talking about whenever they're creating a system.
Yeah.
Thinking about all the exceptions, thinking about all the issues around the system, and that's one of them, because bounty hunters aren't criminal and they won't be shot at. I don't know. Maybe there will be I don't know. Yeah. Anything it will be tough to balance that stuff out. Maybe
Especially when there's
once
only
you
one
leave
prison. I mean, when there's multiple, how do you know people are escaping?
when and where? Yeah, true.
I guess
there are a
maybe
couple.
if you kill a guy, like here, it's like the griefer is getting griefed by the person that they were maybe griefing at some point, right? Like you kill this guy's attacking you, you kill him, he gets sent to prison. You know exactly where he is, and you just wait for him.
Yeah.
I mean, the one way to do it would be have the prisons have turrets, and if you're in the area, you're given a crime stat for being on private property. Or something.
That's a creative way to go around it.
Yeah.
If you're near the prison, you're actually going you get a crime stat, and then you get shot at by the turrets.
Exactly.
They could lower what the turrets engage in crime stat to the bare minimum, so as soon as you have any crime stat near a prison, maybe they'll shoot at you. That also could work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it has to make it difficult for the escapee and the people helping for the escape, or the people trying to troll or whatever, right?
And if they can add a mobile word, like, I don't know how they can. I don't know if they can never do that because it makes things too easy, maybe. But adding a way to clear your crime stats after you leave the prison, in a way, or like kind of.
Well, yeah, hacking.
Like hacking, but like something more nearby, or like closer to the prison, where you kind of have to fly off there real quick, and then I don't know why that would be. Oh, actually, wouldn't it make more sense if there's like a police security outpost nearby, and then after you kind of like leave the prison, you go there, kill the cops, and then clear your stat, and then escape.
Yeah, you steal a like a motorcycle, and then go. Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. They're kind of like connecting a little, advocacy security outpost to that area. So you actually also clear your crime stat after you leave. So there's like this kind of loop around it. And it's very difficult because there are a lot of cops there. You got to kill them. It increases the difficulty on the ground as well.
For real.
So there's like there you can be really creative with this stuff. You can do actually a lot of things, I think. I mean, good luck, Luke.
Yeah. True. All right. So with that said, we can bring in our first caller here that's joining us. And his name's Rumkid. And he's called on quite a bit and has a lot of good points. So let's see what he has to say. Hey, Rumkid, what's up, man?
Nothing much.
So, what are your thoughts, man? And you're here with ASN as well.
So, I do a fair bit of drug running and the PU to. Which is
had
not
to specify in the PU, because like if you stopped there, that would have been.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to comment on real life. But so and I've been doing it for about the past month, and I've never been stopped by the cops once. Like, it's so easy avoiding law enforcement right now with just getting out of the seat, and then you'll never get interdicted when you're quantum jumping. And those, for those who know the routes, you have, at least if you want to do the, depending on which outpost you go to, you would have to jump from basically from ArcCorp to either Crusader L5 or Grim Hex, which is quite a long jump, which you would normally get interdicted by if you stayed in your seat for it. So I'm feeling like it's a little too easy to avoid the crime stats when you're doing illegal activities that is not griefing other players.
Yeah.
I agree.
But is that more just like a technical bug issue that they're probably aware of and just haven't made a priority to resolve yet, rather than like game design?
Well, I would think that they would have to add some more stuff in order to, you know, maybe lower your cargo capacity, and then it's quote unquote stealthed. So you farming materials whenever the bad guy says police scans your security.
Well, no,
or your cargo.
Yeah, and
the seat thing is
go
a
ahead.
bug. Like, that is part of the problem, and I think that's eventually going to be fixed. And it's kind of weird how, like, if they really did tie it to you actively using the ship, it's kind of a implementation oversight in a way.
Yeah,
there should be a better system of detecting players moving around the universe.
It shouldn't be detecting players; it should be detecting ships, right?
Yeah, so that's kind of an issue that I'm pretty sure that they're gonna look into, because it doesn't make sense. And the other thing, I agree, once you know the routes, it's easier. But that's when actually the in theory the dynamic pirates and dynamic police is gonna be really cool, because overall, if they can track where these routes are, they can make police rotate on them. Like, it wouldn't be that difficult.
Yeah.
They can create rotations around the quickest routes between these drug runs. But again, I don't know how that will be eventually. Yeah.
Yeah. So Rum, what are your thoughts just in general about getting prisons in 3.9 rather than, I don't know, something else you were interested in? Do you see, like, I'm assuming you listened to the discussion we've been having. Do you see the point of it? So what are your general, like, feelings about it when you saw that coming into 3.9?
I really don't care.
You're just waiting for your racing, right?
Basically.
Yeah.
No, I think it's cool. It's nice to see that, you know, for a long period of time, Star Citizen was and felt extremely static.
Yeah.
And while prison gameplay, and I do want to use air quotes there, might not be the most interesting thing in the world, it'll still be something else to do.
Yeah.
Then you go, you know, I go take out my Avenger Warlock and go grief some miners and get sent to prison, and I have some fun trying that out. And then I go back to doing my drug runs or racing or, you know, various, you know, events that people do. But yeah, I
feel like a lot of people are starting to feel the way you are these days, which is just tired.
Well, I still enjoy playing the game, and so I'm more tired of all the promises and very few results, or the results coming, you know, 5 years later, kind of deal.
Yeah.
Because I think, with the exception of like game breaking bugs like the server crashes and a few others, I do generally enjoy playing Star Citizen. Yes, I do need other games to keep my sanity, but I think that should be expected when you play the same thing over and over again.
And the same
breaks from it.
And the same alpha thing, yeah.
And the same alpha thing, the same thing that's not ready for you to play over and over again. It just doesn't make any sense.
And there are alphas and there are alphas, so yeah.
Yeah. What is this? So, like, when people tell me to relax, it's just an alpha. Is it justified?
No.
It's no.
It's not, and it's not because Star Citizen or CIG specifically marketed it as a finished product.
But they say it's an alpha.
Oh no, they keep saying it, but the marketing and that sort of deal tells me that's a finished game. So I think it's a valid thing to perhaps not to quote unquote bitch about the things that are not in the game yet, but the things that are there, I definitely think it's a valid thing. Hammering CIG, like, why is this not working?
Yeah.
Like, because as I'm sure ASN would agree with me in that, implementing new things to already buggy mess is not creating fewer bugs.
Yeah, it's and that's the thing, right? It's I wish it was just easy gameplay implementations that are the issue. Like, it's just there are so many technical things that the game is still going through, which is also adding additional complexity. Like the reason why, like, for example, if you would take if the game continued its development on 2.0, it would have been a worse game, but it would have been closer to finish. But since 3.0 happened and it started from there, and it kind of moved on from there, it also added a lot of the problems, because like you take a good base and then you develop on it as much as you can while polishing, and then as soon as you add a few changes to the groundwork, like you literally are taking, like, I don't know, the foundations apart while there's a building on it, and then it becomes very complex. And I think that's what SC finds itself in, is they are I mean, it's again the same analogy is like they're flying a plane, and while they're fixing the wings, like, it's just that's why there's so much turbulence, is like half the wing is missing, and there's only one engine, and like stuff like that.
It doesn't make any sense to do it this way, but this is the box they put themselves in, so it's just reality now. This is just what it is.
This is how it's gonna be. Yeah, exactly. And now, like, I think the best they can do is just working on these smaller improvements in the short runs on these roadmaps, and try to minimize the damage technical changes like Sogs do on the game, and just start focusing on these weaker parts of the game as it stands. While preparing for the next stage, pretty much.
Yeah, for sure.
Go ahead. Another thing,
Rumkid, before you go though, just know that couple callers, so try and keep this last point a little shorter if you don't mind. Thank you.
Sure do. Another thing is with a lot of the stuff that I'm seeing right now from CIG is a huge focus on the first-person shooter side
and the planetary side.
Yeah.
Could be related to Squadron, yeah.
It could, but I when I backed the game, it was supposed to be a loading screen basically to get to a landing zone, and that was it. You couldn't even land on the bloody planets. And while the planets are cool, it's even Area 18, which is supposed to be a megatropolis in that regard, is just a empty shell. So I don't know. I would personally, I would like to see more game aspects revolving around actually flying this spaceship. Some people spent several $1,000s for, than getting thrown in prison and you walking around naked, basically.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my final thought.
You sound depressed. About Star Citizen,
it's like, man. This is ending on a downer.
Yeah.
Well, hope your next callers can improve.
lift us up a little bit. We'll see. All right, buddy. Rum, have a good one. Go play another game that inspires you. Okay, play another game that lifts you up. Play Eco, yeah. All right. Our next caller is Unmatched. Unmatched, what's up, dude?
Hey, can you hear me good?
I hear you great. And I
All
already
right,
know that this is going to be on a different level from Rum's ending here.
Oh, all right, right. First I want to flex that I just made a mill in Tarkov. You know what I'm saying? Just off of a scav run. So just want to say that.
Nice.
But
Congratulations.
I want to try something. I know your topic is does Star Citizen need prisons, and I could talk about that, but I would rather loop into something else from like 2 weeks ago, which was about the progression, if you don't mind.
Quickly, if you don't mind.
All right. Like quickly in general, or just quickly about the progression stuff?
About the progression stuff, since that's not the type of podcast we have.
Okay. So progression in Star Citizen, I want it to be, well, first of all, I'd just like to say I played uh World of Warcraft, RuneScape, Aeon, and Guild Wars 2, and a whole bunch of other MMOs. And the best MMOs that I've ever played with the best progression was, believe it or not, RuneScape, the original, and old school RuneScape, which is going on right now. Old school runes right now. I hope to God that their only progression in Star Citizen isn't just a ship, because then it would just turn into like Eve Online, where money could buy everything and you could unlock everything with money. You get what I'm saying?
Mm.
Well, in RuneScape, to unlock stuff in RuneScape, you have to do skills, you have to do quests, you have to do tasks from easy to mundane. You have to kill monsters over and over and over again, farming monsters, sometimes even using the skills themselves to unlock the monsters. On top of that, you could people kill to unlock certain items too. And I hope that's what they have planned for Star Citizen, and not just the ships. I hope to God the only game they don't only have one gameplay loop, which is just the ships. I hope there's places that is walled off and items that are walled off, and you have to go through a whole bunch of headache, driven tasks and stuff like that. So
The problem with a lot of the traditional MMO game design versus a game like what Star Citizen wants to be is having fucking daily quests and killing the same boss over and over again doesn't make sense.
I get it.
Like, I like to, trust me, you and I are on the same page. I love those kind of games. I played those kind of games for years too. But if you're looking for that in Star Citizen, you're looking in the wrong place.
It's not that I know what Star Citizen has to offer, dude. I've been following this thing like obsessively since 2015, and I just hope, like yesterday, like 2 weeks ago, I started playing Star Citizen. I started like Tarkov pissed me the fuck off. I died a shit ton of times, and I went and played Star Citizen. I was like, all right, I'm gonna take a serious shot at this. And guess what? I ran out of stuff to progress for after one day. I took my prospector, went out there, started mining, got a whole bunch of money, put that into cargo running, and after just one day I had 200k. I bought, and that was on top of me already having all the best armors and everything. And I'm like, what else is there to do? Hopefully this is not the only progression that there is in the game, because especially as a hardcore person I am that could go like play 8 to 12 hours a day, I'm gonna run out of things to do easily. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, that's because it's not a game that's meant to be played over and over again. And let's bring it back to the question where. Oh, go ahead, ASN.
It has a bunch of traditional MMO style quests. Like a lot of the quests right now and all the missions are static. And this is one of the subjects I brought up, is like how all these missions are going to be tied to the dynamic part of the game later on. Because that's what matters. Like, it doesn't matter how many times you can raid a bunker over and over again. It's the same mission. The big thing what matters there is how is that triggered? How is that influenced by the overall economy, politics, or whatever that goes on in the universe? The same thing with the PI investigation mission. You could redo that a million times. Like, once you've done it, it's over. It's not exciting anymore. But if you add elements of whatever people do that trigger those things, it all makes much more sense and it becomes a living thing. So it already has a lot of traditional MMO things. It just doesn't gatekeep or like lock things behind certain objectives as much. But I would say you you really need to tie those missions into something where the players have an input and the universe has an input to trigger them and to change them.
Yeah, and I just hope that the progression just isn't just the ships. I hope that to get, like, let's say a good weapon, you have to go do a quest or you have to go kill something over and over again, or just give us more than just, oh, you're a rich guy, you could buy the best ship with the thing, but I don't want it to just be
they
like
need
that,
to have
know
a
what I'm
little
saying?
bit more reputation in the game, and the same. Let's
Yeah,
bring it
yeah.
back to prisons, right? Like
Yeah,
the
okay.
the reputation that a pirate should be trying to make, is trying to like fly under the radar and not have a really known reputation in a system, because then they're gonna have bounties on their head and they're gonna get attacked or whatever, right? But now what are yeah, let's go on to prisons. Do you like?
Yeah,
you've been
let's go
playing
there.
Star Citizen pretty regularly. This adds another gameplay loop to it. Well, what are your thoughts on prisons for 3.9?
I don't think we need prisons right now. Right now we have a big big blank slate with nothing much real to do, and like I'm not gonna be in prison because I'm just focused on making progression, and it doesn't apply to me. And again, we don't have much to do in the game right now. They need to be putting our resources to giving us more content to do. We have basically the metaphor, wide as an ocean but deep as a puddle or something like that. And there isn't anything to do. There isn't enough people in each server, to constantly be running into people to even PvP. And I just think it's not something necessary right now. And I don't even think theaters of war is necessary right now. Theaters, arena commander, and the FPS thing isn't necessary right now, because those things should be used to train, but we don't have anything to train for right now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's just that I don't think that prison is necessary. It's cool to have. They have to have it at some point, but it's not necessary right now for the game that doesn't have much to do. I ran out of things to do in like one day. Hopped in a prospector, bam, bam, 20k, 30k here. Did a few runs with the caterpillar, 25% each run.
Bam, bam with the prospector, huh?
Yeah, and then with the caterpillar, 25% profit each run. You could, if I was to keep on playing, I would be like a multi-millionaire right now, and I would own everything in the game. But what else is there else to do but get millions of dollars in the game? You know what I'm saying? It ain't worth it to do the FPS missions. You're risking too much for like 500 for 5k. It ain't worth risking your life for 5k when I could run from Port Olisar to the business district and make 25% on 100k. You know what I'm saying? But going back to prison, it has to happen at some point, but not right now, because there isn't many gameplay loops. There's not much to do in the game. Some things are imbalanced, like
I mean, you could tie it back, because, like, for example, people were saying Jumptown is a fun place, right? The thing is, when you have 50 players over a 50 million square kilometer map, the best thing you can do is add points of interest and areas where players often have to converge through missions or whatever that is necessary, mining, trading. So maybe adding a prison is just another way of getting people together into one location, right? I think.
Yeah, maybe it is. I mean, there's going to be a lot of trolling people in there because, you did bad things outside, you're going to do bad things inside. But I like the idea of being that one guy in there that's going to have 1 million credits. And apparently you're going to be able to trade that to other people, hopefully for something more useful, so they could get out quicker. Maybe they could transfer you some money on the outside or while they're inside to like, so whenever you decide I want to go out, you're gonna be richer than when you went in, because you were just the guy digging away in the mines, getting people out as quickly as possible. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and even though it is like a gameplay loop, I guess the prison system, it's definitely not a gameplay loop that a majority of the community is interested in taking part in, right?
Yeah.
So it just feels weird to have literally the next gameplay loop introduced to Star Citizen when all these other gameplay loops were on the roadmap ready to be prioritized is what seems weird, which is where the topic comes from in general, is like salvaging was on the roadmap for a year and
Yeah.
prisons became the next true gameplay loop brought into the game, which is just odd.
But I don't think salvaging would do even much either. I would think it'd be even less useful than the prison gameplay because there's no way to find Rex right now.
Yeah.
There's no way to you know, and I doubt whether it's even going to be worth it to be going roaming around trying to find Rex.
Yeah.
You know, there's not enough PvP in the game for wreckage. You know what I'm saying? And again, that would just clutter up the servers anyway with salvage because you know if a ship blows up, you got to keep that ship, you know, in its destroyed state there. That would just take up more space on the servers, you know, loading down the servers and stuff like that. So it would even stop us from even getting more than 50 people into the PU. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Maybe that is why they should have kept to one drug lab, one security outpost, and then keep to one prison. You know, everything as just one spot because the universe is so big, and they kind of spread them around the major planets. So, like for example, the security outpost is at, I don't know, Hurston, and you have the drug lab at Yella, for example, and then you have the prison at whatever other place. So every planet has this one unique thing that every player that kind of falls into that gameplay thing has to go to, and then they will converge more often.
Yeah, it really would be interesting, but yeah, prison it's a really good thing to have, but not right now. And I guess that's the end of what I really have to say about it.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Unmatched, we'll leave you there. Thank you for calling. I appreciate it. Less depressed, but still ending depressed. So let's see if we can have a positive call next. What do we think? Let's see if it's possible.
Yeah.
Our next caller and our final caller for today is Rodwan. And again, ASN, thanks for sticking around and taking part in this. It's been pretty cool.
No worries.
Rod, how are you? Welcome.
Oh, I'm doing all right.
So, what are your thoughts, man? What are your thoughts on prisons coming into 3.9? Worth it? Not? Looking forward to it?
Well, I mean, I largely kind of echo what a lot of people are saying. I come at it from a different perspective than the previous caller.
Okay.
My position on it is why not ultimately, because what I see, I mean, I can go through where my perspective is that I'm largely into combat, and my org is very much white hat focused. So we're not going to glean a whole bunch from the prison gameplay, but I see it from a perspective of, I mean, they can't really add the salvage and some of these other gameplay loops very easily without the economy working, where they can add prison gameplay. So I don't know if this is coming from a reasoning of we can put this in because it doesn't affect all these other baseline fundamental systems. So that's something that they can put in, and it's kind of an evolution of the law system. From my understanding, as they're started with fines, and then they've moved on to what we have this patch, and then the next patch they're adding the prison gameplay, and they really need to flesh out some of these social systems anyway, because you get I don't want to say necessarily griefers, but the people that hang around Olisar and just make your life a living hell. How are we going to deal with that? And realistically, you can say it's marketed as a full game or not, but we all know that we're still very early on in the game development. I mean, they don't even have the flight model figured out yet. So now isn't a bad time to try and figure out how we're going to deal with these really difficult problems where games like Elite Dangerous and some of these other MMOs, they don't necessarily have a good way of dealing with it either, other than to just walk around with a ban hammer.
I wouldn't call Elite an MMO though. Like, it has some elements of it, but yeah.
Right.
But I agree with your point. Yeah.
Yeah, but they don't have a good way of dealing with the these people that go around and just harass other players.
Yeah, definitely.
So, I mean, for me, that this is again why I chose this topic is, in my opinion, the way to prevent players from harassing other players is to give them something to do. Because the only reason that they're harassing other players, there's no way that players are going into the game right now and harassing certain players because they don't like that player and they're specifically trying to harass that person. In some cases, sure, like if you're a streamer, it happens to me occasionally. I see it happen to streamers that are much larger than me way more often. So yes, that's a thing, and that's a whole nother situation that in no way CIG should be developing gameplay around stream snipers or anything like that, right? But when it comes down to preventing these guys that we are not sure if we want to call griefers, because I don't think that they're being, and I Rod, I think you're kind of feeling the same way because you were hesitant to call them that as well. The idea for me is not necessarily to create a punishment for them, it's to create a reason for them to play the game. And the reason they're being jerks is because they destroyed PvP with a lot of the stuff that they've done with the flight model and with auto gimbals, and now nobody wants to take part in it. So then CIG puts in this bounty system where, like, wow, 10,000 credit bounties in comparison to 1,000 or 2,000 on NPCs. Now we have some PvP, and these guys are just trying to create something for themselves. Like, I don't blame them for doing what they're doing necessarily. I somewhat blame CIG without knowing why certain things are priority and why they aren't, for not giving them something to do.
Right.
And,
well, and
yeah,
go ahead.
No, you go.
I largely agree. I think that for me, I agree with Board Gamer's definition on if you're going to call somebody griefer, that's somebody that's specifically going out of their way to attack SaltEMike over and over and over. Somebody that's just sitting around bored out of their skull,
just looking to fight anybody. I mean, the guy's just looking for a fight, you know. So,
and the prison gameplay to some extent gives those people something to do. I know that Noodle has expressed excitement for, oh, there's consequences for my actions, and then I have this whole other gameplay loop. So that's great for him. But from coming at it from my perspective, this doesn't give necessarily me anything more to do. I'm more interested in giving the freighters and the miners a reason to hire me as a escort, because that's kind of where my gameplay is going to be coming from. And the demands about the whether or not the mission system is ever going to get some missions that actually work. But like I said before,
Rod,
this is something that
ASN, you hear that too?
Robot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rod, see if you can leave and come back real quick, because you just started getting a little robotic there for a second. Or adjust. Yeah. See if we can get him working. But, I mean, I get the perspective that he's coming from. It's making
and
sense.
There's another factor that needs to be included in this, because this is the intention of the prisons, to deter and to punish. But the other big deterrence is losing your ship, right? And that's in EVE, when you work on a ship for, I don't know, you get ships for millions and then you kit them out and you get an attachment for them. You spent so much, there's 6 months of work in some ships, and then you go to a risky place and you start, you think, even the thought about losing it, which is, I mean, you go in there thinking about it, but when you do lose it, it's such a big loss.
Yep.
That's when the risk and reward really starts kicking in, is the thing you lose, you can lose things, and which in Star Citizen you can't lose things. The ship is still there, right?
It's so wonky, and I really hope that idea is just because the game is in a rough state right now. The inability to lose things and just get it back from insurance.
Yep. It's such a weak system that they need to expand on, and also persistence plays a huge role in people doing risk versus reward and losing things and things. So as you can see, it's a puzzle from all sides.
Yeah, it's really difficult, and that's why it's not. It doesn't kill me that they. Sorry, I'm trying to get him back in the call. It doesn't kill me that they're taking time with a lot of these things because it's not that simple. It's not as simple as everyone seems to think it is. It just isn't, you know? All right, Rod, we got you back, buddy. Sorry I'm moving you around all over the place. Sound better. Perfect.
No worries.
So if you want to finish your thought, feel free. I apologize.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, so what I'm waiting for kind of is just missions that have a purpose to them, and that comes with the
Dynamic.
kind of like the dynamic mission system, where because as of right now we don't have the capacity to have enough players for there to be enough pirates to even worry about, and the pirate gameplay is kind of nil also. So the idea of a player hiring me to escort them isn't really conceivable. But with the dynamic mission system, that should be something that I can actually make progress in.
Yeah, I agree. And that, like, even something as simple as creating a opposite bounty mission where, like, somebody's doing a ton of bounties and killing pirates. Why isn't that pirate organization creating a bounty mission to kill you?
Sure.
Right? Like, it's something as simple as that. Like, when you have lower karma, like, you know how when you do too many piracy type missions, you start, like, you basically have no missions on your mission board. I wish more time was spent on stuff like that rather than something like prisons right now. But I also understand the value of having that framework for piracy to be built in. And if that's what they're waiting for, then it makes sense to me. I would just love to see some of those opposite end missions, which would be sick.
Right. Well, do we know whether or not they're adding additional missions or not with this prison gameplay?
We don't. But we do know that they know that that's a concern. Like, inside yes, certainly inside the prison is the mission to pay your merits off and mine hand minables or whatever.
Right. Well, I just don't know whether or not the merit system and all that is that tied into the old mission system that they're trying to move away from, or are we now everything moving forward? Is it
who knows
tied in with the new stuff? I forget specifically what the hiccup was with that, but I want to say it had something to do with SOX. And now that this is like the second patch that SOX has actually been live, so hopefully we can start getting like legitimate missions. Because that was what they had said in the past, is they didn't want to make missions and then they break because of something stupid and then they have to remake the whole mission, but they're all just temporary still.
The one thing that Luke said in the most recent video was that the nice thing about this prison system is it's not attached to most of the Star Citizen systems. So it took less effort, less likely to break, not as many moving parts.
So, well, at a minimum,
isolated. That's much easier to pull off. And Luke did say that after they get the base going, that they will look at missions that ties the outside world to the inside. And I think that's a good approach, because then you can kind of, as he said, like, make missions where you take a mission and there's a gang inside the prison, an NPC, and then you purposefully try to get into the prison to maybe smuggle some contraband in and do your time and leave, just to do, just having more content related to that is I think very smart. And they need to get the base out for that, though. Like, you got to have a functioning core system and then start improving on it.
Which makes it clear why this is probably a priority over other things at the moment.
Right. Well, for me, at a minimum, the prison system will provide more content for me to at least view, where I won't personally be going to prison, but you'll
see how others interact with it.
Exactly. I mean, people like Rex and Noodle and all these other guys, it's going to create just beyond just the fact that the mission or the prison system is there, other content that players come up with on top of it, like be it escaping the prison and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you can be a lawful merc protecting the prison. Like, Like you could do like there are some things that you can definitely pull off, because if criminal players are saving their criminal friends who got into prison, there will be bounties and PvP bounties which they're working on. If it does get some improvements, it would definitely assist lawful combat players to engage with those, try to prevent them.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it kind of ties back to you in a way if you want as well.
Right. Well, I mean,
oh no, it's happening again.
like I said,
I don't know why
it's probably my bad internet.
Oh, fixed. Okay.
Fixed.
Yeah.
So my perspective on this essentially is that the vast majority of people are more or less lawful players.
Yes.
This is essentially a scenario where CAG has added a additional toy to the toolbox, or toy to the toy box, but it's not one that most people want. However, it is still an additional toy. So,
and is likely important.
Toy citizen.
Yeah, and it's important for making the game be what it should be, more towards its end game anyway. So, Rod, I think we'll leave you there because it's been about an hour that I've taken up ASN's time, and I just want to say I appreciate your call, and ASN, I appreciate you being on.
Yeah, hopefully that's some positive for you.
Thank you. Yes, it was.
I can add some positives, like from what I'm observing.
Go for it.
At least now we have a realistic roadmap, because now that I'm looking over the roadmap, I actually don't see something absolutely mental.
W.
So, yeah,
but
this is actually a roadmap that they can pull off, in my opinion, because the stuff here is just something they can do.
I feel like we had this conversation a year ago, though, that the roadmap has become more realistic, and we feel like they can pull it off. So
they scaled down from that too. So
yeah, I mean, you can't scale down much more, is kind of the point. And be able to create Star Citizen in a realistic period of time.
But at least, like, I think that the stuff there is good, especially in 3.9 is something with their track record they can actually, they'll be pulling that stuff off.
True. Okay. Well, yeah, it looks good. We ended on a sugary note, and we'll leave it there with that. So, ASN, Rod, thank you for being on. And
thank you.
Yeah, so much.
We're gonna do the outro. So have a great one. Appreciate it. And relax, ASN. Enjoy some games. All right, guys. So that will do it for today's Answer the Call. A little bit of a different one, where we had ASN, who's obviously a game developer, come in and just kind of keep it on. I think he would have helped me keep it on topic, with the sense that a lot of people might go off and go, well, we need all these other things, and it's like, well, there's dependencies before those other things are possible. So, just like I said earlier, I do believe prisons are essential to come in before we start having real kind of PvP and piracy type gameplay, and I think they kind of start going hand in hand. Is that piracy and PvP kind of have to go hand in hand for them to happen. So thank you guys for watching. Kept the show kind of short this week. I have a very, in my opinion, interesting conversation that we will be having this week. I've done a lot of thinking, and it's been since CIG released their financials. I've been doing a lot of thinking about it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to post this kind of here and there series type video that I used to do on my YouTube channel a little bit, and it was just a random video, but I never gave it like a name. And I'm going to call it Salty Thoughts. And Salty Thoughts on this week is going to be really interesting, so keep an eye out for it. And we're going to have an Answer the Call that coincides with that video. So not only can you respond in the comments of that video, because it's going to be... people are going to be mad, people are going to be agreeing with me, and it's going to be very polarizing, I feel like, and it's hopefully it's a little eye-opening for some people, including Star Citizen. I'm assuming they're thinking about this, but I was blown away when I saw some things there, and it scared the shit out of me. So I'm going to kind of bundle up my thoughts into a nice little script and explain to you what I think, and then maybe I'm completely off base. We'll have to see. We'll have a nice answer the call in relation to that. So guys, with that, leave a like, comment, let me know what you think about Prisons in 3.9. Are you excited for them? Are you not? Are you excited to hopefully have some pad rammers have some consequences like a lot of us are? But yeah, so I'm kind of leaving it very vague because I really want you to watch that video and engage with it, because I think it's really important for things going forward for all of us and for Star Citizen. It's interesting. So anyway, I'll leave you there. Goodbye, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend. And yeah, have a great one. Bye.